Internet! Hello, you lovelies. This is the sound of a man who's been to Comic-Con. He has lost his voice, but he has kept his spirit. I'm Coy Jandro. I'm a Bostonian who loves pop culture, comic books, San Diego Comic-Con, and people. I am joined, as ever, by the great producer Jake, who was wise enough to keep his voice, and he's going to talk today. It's going to be the Jake Koycast show.
Internet.
There it is.
See, I did it.
He's got such clarity in his vocal cords.
Yeah. You sound like you've been smoking for the past
I'm
60
like
years.
One pod away from that little like I'm very close to the needing the machine. I did Comic-Con the hardest I've ever done it. I did Comic-Con. I did the most I've ever done at Comic-Con. This will largely be a Comic-Con experience as well as Comic-Con news episode. If you've never listened to this show, I kind of dive into the news, but through the comic book centric lens. That is the medium I hold near and dear to my heart. And Jake loves comic books as well. So we come from that angle. I generally love most things. Jake loves a lot of things.
Don't put that on me. Don't put that evil on me.
You say a lot of things. I said a lot. There was no negativity there.
But you compared it to most.
But that's because I was going to say you're the keeping me grounded.
Just say it. Say what everybody's thinking.
Jake loves most things.
You're very easy to please, small-minded.
I was trying to give you
not
credit.
Emotionally
I was trying to give you credit, and you're tearing me down to tear you down.
It sounded like it wasn't credit.
No, but I was the next sentence.
I got these little Deadpools for you.
I appreciate that.
I'm not sure if you saw these little Deadpools.
Oh, I immediately did. I put the remote next to them.
I've had these little Deadpools. They're like maybe 2 inches tall. And they're holding Deadpool sitting like when he was on top of the bridge in the movie.
He's reading something.
And I've had them. I don't know where they came from, but all I know is that I've had them for like 7 years.
They're precious.
Since the movie came out, and every time you come, I forget to give them to you. So
I'm very excited to have them. So I was going to say that Jake is more of a realist and that he has the things that he enjoys. Some people way more because he's not just like, I love everything. But the point was, this is a generally positive podcast.
Yeah.
You've never been here before. But then ironically, Jake made it negative. So here we are. I was swinging for the welcome to a very positive pop culture podcast.
Clearly, I didn't know that.
Here we are.
You were trying to tear me down.
Nope. But we're back. Well, basically, I want to talk about all the biggest announcements out of the Comic-Con. And the way I was going to get into that with the positivity is that I think one of the worst things that's happened to pop culture with especially these announcements is people expect more than is possible. So therefore, all the articles are like, Henry Cavill didn't show up and learn to physically fly. DC has failed. So I thought it was really interesting.
I'm not seeing that, which makes me feel like I'm doing something right
You're
on social
good
media.
Internet. Yeah, I'm happy if you're good internet. No, I literally have seen like DC failed Comic-Con, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, they had Black Adam come out in costume and literally levitated. It was awesome. Like I got to see The Rock cut a promo in the Black Adam costume. Like, I'm not even a wrestling fan, but I knew that was a moment.
Yeah.
It was dope.
Also, like, they don't have as much in the works. So
just by volume.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have liked to have seen the things I was looking forward to that we didn't get are like down the pipeline. Like Blue Beetle is filming right now. Right. I didn't expect footage. It would have been cool to talk costume, but like, I think if they'd shown a Blue Beetle costume in a still, then people would have been like, where's Henry Cavill? Instead, they had 2 very showy Hall H's.
Right.
So we'll start with the DC panel. They did a Shazam 2 mega announcement. They had a teaser that we'd already seen, and then they showed a brand new trailer, which they released soon thereafter. Did you see any of the trailers out of Comic-Con?
No, I did not see. Well, I saw
Shazam's
some of them.
your jam.
I saw some of them out of the weekend, but I did not see the Shazam trailer. As a fact, this is the first time I'm even hearing about it. Which again, not a good clearly sign. There's some, there's something happening.
I'm also jealous of the peace you live in because I'd rather hear nothing than anger. So, I really enjoyed the Shazam 2 trailer. It shows a little bit of the God side of things. Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu are in it, in the trailer as well as the movie. Right. And we get to see them as the gods, the sisters they play. But what was really cool, and the thing I want to talk about is Helen Mirren couldn't make it, and neither could Rachel Zegler. So 2 out of the 3 sisters couldn't be there. I got to give credit to the way they utilized this. They had Lucy Liu on stage, who is a goddess playing a goddess, but she walked out with the staff like of eternity,
like holding it up.
Literally came out like with power, and I was like, this is such a cool moment. So you've got Jack on stage, Asher on stage, Zach Levi on stage, Lucy Liu on stage, and it's Comic-Con, it's Hall H, it's a moment.
Sure.
So, but we do notice they're not there. So Tiffany Smith, friend of the show, is hosting the panel, And Tiffany's like, well, we do have a video message. And it's like a Skype call, which is very cheeky and fun between Helen Mirren and Rachel Zegler. And they're talking.
Between them to one another or to the Hall H?
Both. Like they're talking at one another and like acknowledging that they see us here. And it's just cute. Like you can feel the chemistry through this panel.
Nice.
But what's really beautiful is Rachel Zegler's talking and Helen Mirren tells a story about how she comes to Comic-Con every year. She's a ride or die Hall H person. But that one time, someone tried to cut her in line and Rachel's like, Helen, are you banned from Hall H?
Right.
And she's like, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't an altercation. Well, it didn't have time.
They had a fun bit. They made a fun bit.
But it landed. So the fun bit's great. Right. But it landed with Helen Mirren saying how happy she is to be amongst these three sisters. And you see that expand out. And then she says the phrase that emanated throughout Hall H that I never thought I'd hear. Helen Mirren then goes, yeah, it's a whole lot of pussy power. Amazing. Hearing Dame Helen Mirren say pussy power and then Lucy Liu repeat it and then everyone on stage blush because everyone else is like a dude. So Jack Dylan Grazer is like blushing on stage and Zach Levi, they clearly hadn't seen this footage.
No,
so they're both
this
like
is new. Yeah.
All of them are like on stage and it was such a great moment.
Meanwhile, like a 70-foot tall Helen Mirren and
it's booming through the room. So it was just a really like, that's what I think of as Comic-Con.
If they had balls, that'd be the subtitle to Shazam 2.
Lean all the way in. Shazam 2, Fury of the Pussy Power. So it was a really cool, like, I love those Comic-Con moments. That's something that, like, you're in the room. It's special without keeping it from other people. Like, when you keep a trailer to yourself, a lot of people get mad because it's like, oh, we want that too. I think it's okay to have, like, a week delay. Make it special for the fans in the room.
That's one of the reasons why I stopped doing Hall H.
Because it's like, you're going to see it in 10 minutes.
Because being in the room stopped feeling unique.
The energy is amazing, but waiting like 10 hours?
I think like 2009 through 2011 or 12, those were my Hall H years.
Yeah.
And it started becoming me feeling like I missed out on
the floor, seeing your friends.
Or just I missed out on seeing people and doing the social elements because I was sitting in a room that I couldn't then, by the way, do what you just did.
Right.
I'm an exception because I'm not on the internet. Okay. Well, I'm not on the internet as much. Let me say that. I'm on the internet more than others. But the moment that you just had of getting to explain to me and have the joy of that.
Right.
It's not common.
Right.
Most of the time, it's like, oh my God, so I was in Hall H and you'll never guess what happened. And then they go, well, I saw it. I know exactly what happened.
And that's what I'm giving DC credit for.
Yeah.
There was a moment I got to share with you that was exclusive to me.
Right.
That also doesn't feel like we robbed Shazam fans.
Yes.
Because you still got the trailer, which, everyone did. You not necessarily yet, but you can watch it right now.
Yeah. And I might say that because I'm in on that one.
But it didn't feel like we were like a hierarchy, but it also they gave us something special.
Yeah,
so I think DC nailed their panel.
That's really fun
because that's a really cool thing. The banter between that family, the Shazamily, is incredible. So like seeing their dynamic and stuff is really special. Zach is Zach knows Comic-Con. Like he gets it. Chuck came up. Someone asked if Chuck had Shazam's powers. How would he handle it? That was so precious. Zach just geeking out over the old Chuck memories.
And just imagining like what would Chuck do.
And like that fold over of the old Zach with the new Zach, but also Hall H. Like, so it was a really special panel. And then it went into Black Adam. And Black Adam was cool because Black Adam came out.
We're getting Black Adam first, right?
Black Adam's November. It's December. Yes. Black Adam November, Shazam 2 December.
Right.
So the lights go out in Hall H, completely dark, and you hear like rumbling.
Yeah.
And then they have Rock levitate up on this tiny little platform. So it actually looks a little like he's floating. Cool. I was impressed.
Yeah.
But the whole backdrop turns into lightning, and they have all these ambient lights, which I've never seen Hall H do set up. So it looks like light. It was a really cool moment.
That's fun.
And then lots of fog comes out, and then he basically cuts a promo.
Yeah.
Like he starts doing a lot of quotes from Black Adam. He like sends it out. All this is awesome. Yeah. And then he descends down and it's maybe 90 seconds. And then they bring everyone else in the cast out. And then The Rock is able to change and come out as The Rock. And The Rock is Mr. Charming. He's The Rock.
Right.
And he basically is like, I hear Black Adam was here. Really wish I could have seen it. Sounds like he did some awesome stuff. Like
that's
doing
fun.
Rock stuff.
Yeah.
And then the Q&A is adorable. You can really feel the connection between these members with the JSA.
Right.
Like you can tell they practiced being heroes together. A lot of the dynamic between Atom Smasher and Cyclone sounds really cool. And you can see most of all how proud Rock is of these cast members. Like there's a lot of that like paternal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that movie wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for him specifically. Like,
and Aldous Hodge tells the story of how Rock called him directly and he thought it was going to be him letting him down like gently, but he actually got the part. And Aldous Hodge, I maintain, is going to be a household name in a year. Like that guy has been right there for so many years. Also, I found out from You guys know, if you listen to this podcast, new people to the podcast, shameless name dropper. I'm so sorry. I'm really.
This is going to be a rough episode for the name.
I'm so sorry.
If you do the Koi Cash drinking game where you drink every time Koi name drops,
hydrate. Go get some hangover pills.
Today will be your last day.
Yeah, this is the end for you. And you know what? I'm not even going to talk about the after parties because that's just name dropping.
Oh, jeez.
I won't.
Even just saying that sentence.
But what am I supposed to? That's part of Comic-Con.
I'm not even going to talk about the after parties.
I'm saying I won't. I'm trying to improve, Jake. I'm in self-improvement mode.
Gosh.
My point is, these stories relate to me and they involve people that have names that people feel like are name droppy, but I can't just anyway,
Wait, hang on a second. Do you hear that? Oh shit, the douchebag alarm's going off. I gotta run, you guys. Hang on. I gotta go turn the douchebag alarm off.
There is no way to handle this.
Maybe the batteries are just off, or maybe wait, is there a douchebag somewhere?
So I was talking to Aldisaj, and we talked about, I didn't realize he was designing some of the costumes for the DC Universe too.
Oh, that's interesting.
See why I had to say his name? There's nothing I could do. So he apparently was one of the people designing the Blue Beetle suit that you've heard me rave about.
Right.
So he's not only Hawkman, but he's so invested in the comic books that he's talking about other properties and things. So when he and I were talking, he is such a comic book 90s kid. He's so invested in the authenticity. But now that he's worn the Hawkman suit, he's got the experience of like what works physically.
He knows that sometimes comic accurate means
good goddamn, this is suffering,
impractical, and costs more money and is a nightmare,
and is dozens of pounds, which weigh on you.
Which is crazy because so after realizing that, he's going to have everybody's suits be CG'd like Green Lantern,
which is the way to win. Yeah, because that's the best DC film of all time.
Everybody knows that's how you do it.
That's the only move. So it was cool to hear that he's like as invested as we are, and that he's not just invested in his world. So it was cool to see The Rock, who's been with this for 11 years, plus Aldis, who's been a comic fan his whole life, and all of that come together with this love. This panel felt like this is no disrespect to Snyder fans. It felt like the opposite of the angry Snyder fans. Not all Snyder fans. No. You guys have done so much for charity and things, but the vitriol that certain people that wield that hashtag with have been like tearing other properties down. Well, this whole panel was uplifting. It was Shazam. It was Black Adam. It was Community, and it was really cool to be in the room to feel that.
You know what? It's funny you say that. Like I remember, I think, everybody who listens to the show knows my opinions on the work of Zack Snyder, but I was in the room when they did I forget who the actor was, the voice actor who they had read Batman dialogue when they announced Batman v Superman. Do you remember that moment where they had somebody reading it and then they just put the Batman logo on the screen and then they put the Superman logo in the middle of it or whatever?
That was dope. That was a moment.
It was a cool moment. And I who did not like Man of Steel
felt like
cool. Oh, they're going to do something kind of cool. We're going to do Batman. And his reading of the lines, I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Hearing the people, the sentiment on the floor was, fuck Marvel. Like, this is gonna be this is gonna be the best thing that's ever happened to movies. And I'm like, why is that the takeaway?
Yeah.
Why is the takeaway?
And this felt like the opposite.
Oh, truly. My goodness gracious.
Like this Comic-Con was, and I kept calling special edition, the one in November, I called it QuaintCon because it didn't quite feel like a Comic-Con. It was QuaintCon.
QuaintCon. Yeah.
This Comic-Con, I will forever refer to as Wholesome Con.
Sure.
Everyone felt like they were going back home. Everyone felt like it was warm. And so did the panels. So to see all those actors of that repute loving on the books, which is my shit, and loving on the property, that DC panel maybe is one of my favorites because there was none of that animosity. There was none of that fuck you.
Well, I think it's also because the Snyder fans hate all that. They hate this stuff.
They hate those
because he has nothing to do with it.
Right.
And so they're already not invested.
Which is why that room was so wonderful. Anyway, that was really cool. To conclude my Black Adam talk, that was a really cool moment where a little kid came up. I forget his name, but he said his name twice and he was adorable. And he asked The Rock how jealous was Kevin Hart when he got to be Black Adam. And The Rock, not missing a beat, was like, I think you're Kevin Hart. You're about the right size. And like, it was so adorable. Like the banter stayed top notch. And that's another thing where you're rewarded for being in that room, but it doesn't feel exclusionary. Right. So 10 points to DC. Loved their panel.
10 points to Team Gryffindor.
10 points to DC Gryffindor. So that was magical.
Love that.
It was, I needed a good Hall H, not just for the sake of why you wait in line, but also to remind myself like why comic book is a forever thing. Like this.
What day was that? Was this
that was Saturday morning?
Saturday morning. Got it.
Yeah. So that was at 10 a.m. It was wicked early.
And all of your work stuff was Thursday, Friday for the most part.
So I worked.
So you worked Hall H on Friday.
Yeah.
For BRZRKR, and you had other little things I saw in the morning.
So I had on Wednesdays rehearsals, Thursdays. Thursday I had 2 panels. I did 50 years of Jim Starlin.
Yeah,
man.
that, I was really bummed that I couldn't be there.
That was
for
such an honor.
I would have really liked that. And I'd like to meet him in person.
I'd love to introduce you. That's got to happen. But so 50 years of Jim Starlin was really cool because I've interviewed Jim so many times,
Sure,
and you know I've hung out with Jim, and we've talked about things that are like, you know, in the comic industry, but you never know when you're talking to someone one-on-one off camera what they want to talk about on camera. You know what I mean? Like it's a different dynamic. So this was really cool because I got to use some of the conversations we'd have to allow him to offer those up or not. And since it was a 50 years panel, it was really cool. I took us through the decades.
Nice.
So I talked about like
chronologically.
So instead of my usual like, hey, we're promoting Dreadstar, hey, we're promoting Infinity War, I got to be like, what was it like working with Stan in the 70s versus 80s?
Right.
What was the comic culture like as the, you know, the insanity of the 80s comic boom took off? So we did like a decades panel.
That's fun.
And like Jim got to light up because he was like, he hasn't talked about this shit in years.
Also, you know, you're a good person for that because it's like you are familiar enough with his stories for it to be informed questions versus
what was 1972
or just like the very stereotypical like, so tell us how you got your start,
right?
And then like it's up to him to just sort of tell you his life story,
and that's not what
versus
this was.
Being handheld, which is
and I got to be like, oh, a fan would find this interesting and pivot to it and guide him around like a host job. Which, man, I saw some rough hosting at Comic-Con. That said, like it was but it was really cool when things worked and the audience, like they also know the difference. And that audience got to see Jim on his A game.
Also because Jim Starlin isn't a household name. Mm-hmm. He's one of those comic books.
He's a legend in that world.
Yeah. He's like every comic book artist and writer knows and loves Jim Starlin, but most comic book writers and readers maybe have heard the name. Right. You know what I mean? Like because of that, the audience in that room is there because they fucking love Jim Starlin.
And they're like, they're always asking this.
So that's what's great about that. A room like that.
And that was so unique. That we opened the panel. We opened the con. That was the first panel. It was 10 a.m. on Thursday.
Super fun.
And the fact that it was 10 a.m. on Thursday and we were like 70% capacity it was like 1,000 person room. We had like it was a huge thing. So that was cool. And then that night to go chronologically, I had some stuff in the middle with Boom. Boom Studios was my Berserker panel.
Yes.
Boom Studios, by the way, if you guys listen to my pull list part of this show, they're responsible for both Berserker, House of Slaughter, and Something is Killing the Children.
Yeah.
They're an independent comic studio, and they have 2 out of my top 10 books of the month almost every month.
Did they do Lumberjanes?
Yes, I believe. Oh, I'm not 100%. Let me check.
Because I feel like, because I know I have a small Boom section on my shelf.
Yeah. Let me make sure I'm 90%, but I don't want to be advertising incorrectly. It's under a Boom box, which I believe.
Oh, maybe that's why.
It is Boom. It is Boom.
Got it.
Yeah, since it was Boombox, I wanted to be. Sure. What if there's a side comic that like?
I'm trying to picture the shelf.
Yes, and that's how you organize.
Yeah.
I think I'd seen the Boombox logo. Now I'm just like, please be Boom Studios. So I worked the Boom in the middle, and then that night was one of the. So the thing about Comic-Con when you're in the comic book and TV and film industry is the daytime is the panels and the nighttime is the convening of professionals. So basically at night are dinners and parties where you actually make your connections that are going to be the work for the rest of the year. So that's why I don't generally sleep a lot at Comic-Con, because it's like the night work is as important as the day work. It's just different. So that night was the first work party that I needed to attend. That the lines and everything are always crazy because Comic-Con is like everyone fighting to go to these things. So I actually got in line and then was like, I got to bail. And I do you know Mark Ellis? I
know who he is. I don't know him.
Okay, so it's my stand-up buddy. Yeah. So Mark was doing a show and he wanted me to MC. So wanted me to intro the comics and do all that stuff. Like I didn't know Mark's procedure was when you MC, you get 10 minutes. So I didn't know I was going to do stand-up.
Okay.
And so I go to this stand-up venue at Comic-Con and I'm just like, this is going to be great. I get to be in front of an audience. I get to intro my friends. And Mark's like, all right, so you're going to get your 10 minutes. There's going to be a 2-minute light, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm going to get one more time.
Yeah, that's what a host of a stand-up show does is your job is to warm the crowd up.
I'm learning this. So my brain, when I'm at a stand-up show, I'm not noting the host's responsibility. Like I don't look like I'm just there to vibe. So I get there and I'm like, oh, I'm doing stand-up. So I impromptu at Comic-Con did a stand-up set and like it was so much fucking fun, dude. Like I'm so happy from this entire con because that was the best way to prepare for Hall H by going like, oh, right now a stand-up comedy
thrown to the wolves.
I literally jumped out of a plane without a parachute, like fucking Steve Rogers. Like I was just like, let's see if this goes well. So I walk out on stage and I've got
no. Steve Rogers was equipped to jump out of that. You did not jump out.
I was Bucky falling off the train.
Yeah, you jumped. Yes, exactly. You were pushed out of the plane.
And I went, let's see if I get a robot arm out of this. So I have a note in my phone that's funny, ? That's literally just called like, and whenever I think of something that's funny to me, I write it down.
Sure.
So I walk out on stage and I just find stuff in this note and turn into a stand-up set.
Sure.
And it goes great. They are obviously aware. I let them know it's my third time ever on a stage.
Sure.
And some of them might be kindness. And I don't ever need to.
As long as you kept it on brand.
100%.
It doesn't matter. Like, if I was to be in that situation, like I would just dip back into the years of stand-up and just do the nerd culture shit I had. And I wouldn't do any of the lifestyle stuff. I would just do like Superman's a dick. I would just like, it would be only the old.
So I did that for my in between sections, but I did a full on like, let's see what's funny to these people bit.
It's good job.
And I literally did like my, I've always wanted to be bisexual, but I failed at it bit. I did my like, white people not seasoning food and how that might solve racism. I tried the shit that like may or may not be for this audience. And since that worked, then when I did my intros, I was able to sprinkle in my like, I think phones are just symbiotes. And it was a really cool experience to be like, this is as scary as Hall H, but I've done it.
Sure.
And I didn't sink and fail.
Nice.
And honestly, that might have been the best thing for the next day.
What club was this at?
The American Comedy Club. American Comedy Co.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. We had a almost sold out crowd.
Nice.
And I did stand up and then I went back to the party and got my networking done. And then I was up till 2 and then started my big day.
You must have slept like 17 hours throughout the entire 4 days.
I looked,
not even like for 4.5 hours a day.
For 5 days, I got 19 hours. So about 4 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah. I'm exhausted. And I also walked 44.19 miles. I did. That is
legit. That is
insane.
like, that is a Comic-Con weekend where the Monday after, you're like, your feet are no longer a thing you can feel.
Yeah,
like they're just there. You could see them.
I got the edges, like when you feel like the ridge. Yeah. I called Jake yesterday and I was like, bro, I have no voice, and I want to warn you that I've done this con hard, and I'll be there, but I won't be great.
In fairness, I did tell him we could take our time today, and then like just before we started recording, he was like, "Oh, by the way, I have to be out of here in a few hours."
6:30.
You didn't tell me. I thought you had the whole day free.
Well, it is the whole day.
Oh, that's not the whole day.
The 7 o'clock isn't the that's the night.
Listen.
That's the night. That changed. Anyway,
I thought you were a creature. You just told us that the night was for you. You were the night man.
I've got to film all my Real Rejects video content.
Oh boy,
because I got to cover all the con.
Oh no, you have to react to all those trailers.
Yeah, dude. I got jobs. Anyway. So that was my Thursday. Friday was insane. Matthew Lillard, Tara Strong, and 2 executives from WB Games and I hosted the WB Games panel.
Right.
Multiversus is this really dope game where they're combining all the WB IP into a Smash game.
Okay.
And it's free.
A video game?
Yeah, it's a free video game. And it's on PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox One.
So it's like available to download.
Yeah, but it's totally free with some of the biggest IP in the world.
That's fun.
And then we announced that they're bringing LeBron to the game this week. LeBron James, like just like in Looney Tunes.
So it's pretty much going to be every character that you saw in Space Jam 2.
Yeah. It's the Space Jam LeBron.
If they were smart, it wouldn't be a Smash game. It would be NBA Jam.
So he plays basketball and he's your collaborative team player.
Great. Perfect.
And then Rick and Morty are coming next week. And then we had Harley Quinn and Shaggy on stage. So I literally am hanging out with like 2 of my childhood heroes, talking about like one of the coolest games I've heard of, because I love when IP is shared. Like I think it's beautiful that Warner Brothers can make that. Like this is Ready Player One, but for video games.
Got it. Yeah, it is going to be like one of those free to play games where like they're going to make their money through in-game purchases and stuff like that. And
you add new characters and stuff forever.
Yeah, that's fun. This looks fun.
Right? So
there's a big list. There's a big list. I'm looking at the list of all the characters.
Oh, it's huge.
It obviously has like DC comic characters, but also has Adventure Time characters. It has Tom and Jerry, like Looney Tunes characters. Yeah, this is fun.
And Shaggy like fights with a sandwich.
One of the characters is the Iron Giant,
and
I feel like that's got if you just see feet on the screen.
And they had to rechange. Actually, we talked about that. They had to rechange their whole game dynamic for the size of him.
Right.
So they had to invent new camera angles and stuff. So we had a really cool conversation about like building a game.
Yeah,
and the audience was dope because I was afraid they'd only be there to hear Tara do like Bubbles and him do Shaggy.
Just to do voice work.
But they were it was such an invested in the game audience that they knew like power ups and like fight moves, and like it was maybe like 5-year-old to 50-year-old. Like it was a huge audience, and it was also 10 in the morning on Friday. Like it was another early morning panel. So me and Matthew got to talking about like that whole thing, and what Shaggy means to him and like coming back to that character.
Right.
And then Tara got to talk about like how
Harley.
I did, because I kept hearing her Harley voice even when she was speaking. But she got to talk about how, as the mediums have evolved, how the character's gotten to evolve because it's more time to share, and how she's not just a one note villain. She's got all this going on. So it was a really intimate conversation about actors while promoting a really cool game.
Right.
Really great panel. Like,
Can I make you love the game even more?
What do you got?
I was just when I looked it up, the first thing that came up was some other character leaks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who one of the characters in this game is going to be?
Who?
Ted Lasso. You're going to get to play as Ted Lasso.
That is amazing.
That's of course, assuming this leak is accurate, but it's the person, somebody who like leaked that the game was happening.
That's incredible. Yeah. Oh, audience, I love this. So yeah, it was a really cool morning. And then I've never hosted Hall H before because it is the biggest room at the con. It is truly an honor. I didn't know.
A room. It's not even a room.
It's an empire.
It's literally a hall. No,
yeah.
it's called hall. It's not called room H.
That's true. You're right.
The other ones are like, go to room
or
2,
ballroom 20.
Banquet room, hall room. This is a hall.
Yeah. It is 6,500 seats. And that means with standing room and staff, it is about 7,000 people. So I go into this hall, and when I tell you that it looks CGI to see the empty seats, because it literally looks like someone copied and pasted, like, I'm going to show Jake a video after. It's like rendering, like these are just seats. So there's a badge they give you that is Hall H on stage, and it's dope. It's a holographic green badge, so you can't recreate it.
I've seen the photos online.
I've never seen one.
Yeah. Well, so I just saw them just this weekend. Like people were posting photos.
I got one, and it's like they give out like 50 a year because it's for the people that are like. So I get this badge, and it feels like I can't even describe the power. Sure. I feel like I've just gotten the Infinity Gauntlet.
Also, the fact that it's like because it's like holographic and it has that look, it's like getting a
Charizard.
No, it's like, well, I was gonna go older and just like it's getting like that really cool cable card.
Yeah. I'm like flipping through. I'm like, I got one. My foil card.
Right.
So I do Hall H, and in the middle of the day, I have lunch with the Boom team. We kind of get settled in, and then there's a green room that is just for Hall H. So I didn't know this because I've never done it. Sure. So it's upstairs. It's like an elevator. There's a private like area and stuff, and it's really special to be in. I've done Comic-Con like 12 times. To find new rooms always is like, whoa.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm in this private green room, and now I'm like realizing like a lot of the Marvel photos I've seen have taken place in this room. Like I'm recognizing like corners.
You're putting it all together.
I'm in this space. And then I meet Keanu Reeves as well as Ron Garney, two of my heroes. Ron Garney's one of my favorite artists of all time. And
he's the artist for Berserker?
Yep, he's Berserker's artist, but he's done like iconic runs on Captain America, Wolverine.
Nice.
He did Back in Black, the Spider-Man run that I love.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
that's
so
on
he's
my
that
shelf
artist
as well.
So Ron Garney's a titan. So I get to meet Ron, and it's funny. My dad's a comic book guy, like huge, and he doesn't give a fuck about celebrity. Like my dad just isn't. Like he's not in that space. My mom, on the other hand, is the extreme other way.
Yeah, no, she's a fangirl for sure.
And so the dichotomy has always been fun for me. Like I know who to call about which event. So I literally tell my dad I'm doing this thing, and he's like excited for me about Keanu Reeves. Because he's like, he knows my Matrix love and like all those things. He's excited. He's like, oh, Keanu Reeves is great. I tell my dad Ron Garney's at the panel. He's like, hold on. And he literally pulls up his schedule. He's like, fuck, I've got a class on Friday. Right. My dad almost flew to Comic-Con to meet Ron Garney. And I was like, this is how I'm here. Like the reason I'm doing this panel is my dad bestowed that in me.
I love that.
So I tell Ron that.
Although I hate that because he couldn't make it work.
Yeah, dude, I would have been a better story if my dad was like, and my dad came.
Yeah.
But like I tell Ron that, and I literally see Ron, and Ron's this like jacked, bearded, kind of gruff, like man's man. Like he looks like if Nick Offerman's characters were comic artists. Like he's got this rugged masculinity.
So, but Axe Cop,
the artist.
Right. Yeah.
So Ron is immediately I see him like endeared, but he's still like really like good. Like there's like this manliness to his. And so I'm talking to Ron, and then Keanu Reeves comes in, and we're talking about art and style. And I really wanted something from this event that I could keep. Right. I didn't want like Keanu Reeves to sign my Hall H thing or anything cheesy, but I wanted something I could frame because I've got that Jim Starlin original Thanos, and that means the world to me because my friendship with Jim Starlin means I have an original Thanos that signed a Happy Birthday Koi. Right. And I'm like, what can I do for this book? And I was like, I could have maybe a comic sign, but I'm not going to frame that. Right. So there's a poster we gave out exclusively for San Diego Comic-Con. Right. There's an exclusive Ron Garney poster.
That you get like when you enter the hall.
And that's your ticket thing. Yeah. So I'm the first one to see it. Keanu hasn't seen it yet. So I'm like, I asked his publicist way ahead of time, like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, would it be okay if Keanu Reeves signs my poster? I'm going to have everyone on the handle sign it. Right. But at the same time, we're about to go do the thing. The last thing I want is to be like, I'm a fan, sign this. And then just embarrass myself. So I'm talking to Ron, and then Keanu gets to see the poster for the first time. Right. And I get to see one of my like favorite actors, one of the people that has inspired me to be kinder, one of the people that I think is like formative for art, like Bill and Ted Speed, Matrix.
No, he's definitely like on the very short list of I dare you to find an unkind thing to say about.
There's not a lot of that.
Like he is, with the exception of his material that he's done has been darker. He's kind of just like Tom Hanks.
Just
like
the best of us.
They're in the same sphere.
Holy Rushmore of kindness.
Right, yeah.
So
and just like above the Hollywood bullshit.
Completely.
Yeah.
To a level that I can't even quantify, because in navigating building this panel, there was so much of like, no, Keanu doesn't want to talk about that. Let's talk about he's that.
Yeah.
So he comes in, and the last thing I want is to, put myself in a position of fanboy, but I also want to talk about art with him. So I see Keanu Reeves, someone I admire and appreciate so much. Look at this art. And I see in 1 second within meeting him how much he loves this property and how much he's not attached his name to something.
Right.
He's been integral to this.
Right.
And I see him get emotional about his character with his new art with Ron. And I get to share a moment with Ron seeing it and me seeing it. And then Keanu and I get to talk about Jim Starlin, who I've just done a thing with.
Right.
So I'm like taking up my phone. I'm showing him Jim Starlin art, my art. And I was like, look, I just want something from this panel that's for me forever. Do you mind signing this with everyone else? And I'd gotten 4 of the signatures so far. And he's like, I don't know if I want to sign. Like, I don't want to scribble on. And there's a moment of him like, and then I was like, no, I want to put it next to the Jim thing. He's like, if you're sure you want me to write on this.
What's the image?
So it's a stunning Ron Gardy portrait of Berserker's face, of B's face.
All right. See, I didn't know what the art was. Got it.
Yeah. So it's a really beautiful.
Does it have like SDCC stuff on it?
So there's
like,
some,
does it have like dates and like stuff like that?
So it doesn't have any of that. So what I'm going to do.
That's great.
It's just literally an image. So it doesn't look like a commercial.
Right.
It's literally
well, it doesn't look like an event poster.
It looks like
nice.
art.
Yeah.
So Keanu writes on the side. I've got all 7 signatures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of those floating posters where there's space, like where you see it.
Yeah,
so it's going to be it. And then I'm going to frame my Hall H, like my name placard.
Sure.
And then put that green Hall H on stage and make like a thing.
Oh, the lanyard they gave you.
Nice.
So
I'm going to make like a whole thing out of it.
Make a little shadow box.
And I got a shadow box, and I've got all 7 of my stage mates' signatures on it.
That's really fun.
So it's a really beautiful, and I'm the only one. Like I'm the only one with all their signatures on it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it was really cool to go.
Were any of them signed?
So the thing we did was none of them were signed, but the first 20 people that got Berserker merch and wore it to the boom booth, Keanu signed 20 of them.
Got it. Okay.
So there were 20 that went to the diehards.
Just Keanu.
Just Keanu. I'm the only one with all 7.
Unless they hunted down everybody, which
which I
nobody
sincerely
did.
doubt.
Also, how would you even go about doing that?
And also, like, they're executive producers and stuff.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. There are people who aren't going to be available throughout the con weekend.
Stephen Christie is like who's producing for Netflix. And like Mattson Tomlin is the guy who wrote one of my favorite Batman comics. And he also is writing the screenplay for the movie. But he also
the Berserker movie.
Yeah, the Berserker movie. He's the screenwriter, but he's versed in comic books. So we got to have a whole talk about adapting for mediums.
Nice.
So, but he wasn't about to be around to have, because he's like a big screenwriter. So he got off the floor. Like he was not about. So no one would be able to get all those signatures. So I have a 1 of 1 poster and a 1 of 1 placard. Like it's
Did you sign your own name on it?
I didn't, but I thought about it.
That's curious.
I was on stage.
If it's everybody, but no, yeah, I get that.
So I literally it went from me being really nervous to put myself in a position of like fanboy. But then it turned into art. And as soon as Keanu realized what it was going to be, it was really cool to see that from him. And it was, dude, hosting all age. Like I came out of onto the stage in rehearsal and I was like, okay, I'm having less imposter syndrome than I expected. Cause I talk about my ego and arrogance and stuff, but honestly, I usually have about 2 days of feeling good about anything I do.
Sure.
And on the 3rd day I go like, I'm fucking up. Like I have like suicide Tuesdays about all my shit.
Sure.
And then this event, I walked onto that stage and I was like, no, I've fought to love comic books.
Right.
Like I genuinely am the guy yelling about this. They picked me for a reason.
Right.
And I didn't have imposter syndrome.
You don't get to that point. They don't give you that job because they don't think let me rephrase that. They only give you that job because they know you're qualified to do it. And
you are qualified not. And I was there independently. No network, no studio. I was hired by the comic company because of my love for the comic. Right. So I got on that stage expecting imposter syndrome, didn't feel it, and I was like, okay, fuck yeah, one of the big check marks done.
And I do think not to gloss over what you just said though, because that is, I think, clutch here, is that this wasn't Berserker Boom Studios works with Comic-Con and Comic-Con assigns them a panel host or what was it called? Is it considered a host or is it called a moderator?
Either one. Both are
moderator.
used.
Okay, yeah. So like they're not assigning a moderator. This is them saying this is the moderator we want because we know that this person's going to be right for us, which is
because we need that for this panel.
And there are sometimes it does go the other way. And sometimes it is very much like, SDCC helping.
So tell me about BRZRKR.
Right,
Those people, like people that are invested.
Yeah.
So I was picked because literally at one point, Keanu Reeves, I'm like talking about how much I love the book in the middle of the panel. And Keanu Reeves says, I don't remember the exact phrasing because it was in the moment, but he said something to the effect of like, they know you love it. Like something to the effect of like, I've been gushing about it. And he like gives me a pat of like, and I was like, I'm just so excited. And like
stop selling it.
Yeah.
Stop selling yourself on your love for it. Yeah.
But it was basically a moment of everyone on the panel realized in that moment why I was hired. Like I was there because I love this thing, not because I want to be on Hall H. Sure. But what was cool about when I came out when it was full versus empty was I checked off the no imposter syndrome. I checked off I need to visually see this.
Sure.
But I came out and usually in Hall H, they turn the lights down when it starts. After our video presentation of BRZRKR, all the lights were up. I don't know why. I don't know if they
didn't turn them back.
They didn't turn it back down.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know if they did it for me because they literally over the loudspeaker, they welcomed me as giant comic book fan, lover of Hall H. Kojandro. Like they literally gave me like a plug. Nice. So I came out and the lights are up and I see fucking everyone. So I look out on an ocean of 6,500 faces and my brain immediately goes like, this is going to go one of two ways. You're going to panic or you're going to breathe this in and fucking do it. Like there's no way to not feel. So since I thought I was going to be coming out to the dark and only seeing the front row and I saw everyone, it was a surprise of like, okay, one of two things. So I breathe it in and my arms go out like fucking Vin Diesel in Fight Club. And I walk out on stage and
Vin Diesel is in Fight Club?
Fast and Furious. Vin Diesel when he's like talking about family. So I basically like hug the audience. I'm like, my people. And I come out and I get into like, I have about a minute of intro that I want to do so that I'm not just like, BRZRKR is. I wanted to talk first, so I wasn't explaining to the audience. Like, that's too dry.
Sure.
So I come out and I go basically like, I'm so honored to be hosting All H. It wasn't 10 years ago that I was sleeping in the line you guys just slept in, and I'm like telling people how much this means to me. And the audience is just getting like, yeah, they feel the one of us energy. And I'm riling them up knowing the things that I'd want to hear from a host that actually loves it and means it. And then by the time I get to like introducing the cast, blah, 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 and like Keanu Reeves, it's a fucking concert. Like this audience is like rolling with excitement. And then we maintain that somehow. And this is honestly like a testament to how good the seven of them are as speakers. And you don't always get that with a comic writer, with an editor in chief. Like I am so lucky the studio loves the thing. We have an hour. People don't leave the panel. People are just as excited to talk about Ron Garney as Keanu Reeves. People are literally the rest of the con coming up to me, not asking. I was so afraid of this. What was Keanu Reeves like? How did Keanu Reeves smell? The creepy shit. Like what? They literally were like, dude, I picked up BRZRKR and blah, 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 what you said. And did Keanu talk about this? I'd say 80% of people that came up to me were talking about the comic. So we nailed the panel.
Right. Yeah,
there was so dope.
There's definitely a lot of that. Like people, you look through the program and you go like, what is this? I don't know what BRZRKR is. Oh, Keanu Reeves is going to be there. Yeah.
And like, I really was afraid of that. And instead the people
that was still, I'm sure it happened.
But the people that were still came for that, we sold them on the book.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like, even if they came for Keanu, they stayed for BRZRKR.
Is this available anywhere for people to watch on
someone
SDCC?
Filmed it on YouTube. It's not like official YouTube, but I found a link and I'm gonna ask them if I can share it because I didn't film it. But like, there is the entire panel, 55 minutes of this whole thing. And like a lot of the highlight reel stuff, like I'm not in because I'm not the highlight. But if you want to see my hosting and everything else, it is on YouTube. I'm going to share the link. But it's an hour of this. And literally, we announced it's getting adapted into an anime by the Ghost in the Shell team.
Okay.
It's getting adapted to a book by Random House. It's getting adapted into a movie. And it's getting a volume 2 trade soon. So we got to be like, look, we're making a universe of this character. Sure. And what they're doing is like an Animatrix where they want to be not beholden to continuity because it takes place over the course of 80,000 years. Okay. So the Ghost in the Shell team doesn't have to follow the comic. The book doesn't have to because it's all about B and his journey.
Sure.
So we basically announced like a BRZRKR universe in these different formats.
So it's not the exact same story being adapted 5 different times.
Exactly. It's intentionally not.
They're all going to be very different properties.
So Ghost in the Shell loves this take in the character.
Nice.
The novel loves this take. And then Keanu, apparently his number one author choice was the one that said yes.
Nice.
So he's like so giddy and he's like, I want to say the name. Can I say the name? And the whole team's like, no. And then Keanu's like, out of respect for the writer, I will not say the name. And this was one of the only questions I like. It was tricky because I was trying to not look like I was scooping, but I also wanted Keanu's energy. Like that guy, when he's excited, you want that for the audience and for Keanu. Yeah. So I was like, hey, please don't say the name, but can you tell me about the first conversation you had with the author?
Right.
And then I get to see Keanu and he does like this big lean back in his chair and like throws his hair forward, gets into the conversation. And I'm like, this is why they're here. Your excitement. And I think that's why the book, they brought like 6 months worth of the book. They sold out in 2 days. Like this book was gone.
Right.
And I saw more BRZRKR merch on that floor than Marvel or DC. Like we literally, this comic,
like stuff that the guys gave away, like
we sold stuff at the bait booth.
Got it.
So we sold 2 t-shirts and a hoodie.
Got it.
And everyone was wearing it the next 2 days. And it was literally like that. Boom Studios, an independent comic company.
That's clutch right
We're
there.
the first ever comic on that stage. There's never been a comic book in Hall H.
Really?
I got to host Koi Jandro.
Wait, I find that really hard to believe.
In 51 years, there's never been a comic book on Hall H.
But here's my question. No, and I'm not undermining that. But it was announcing the Berserker movie, was it not?
No, the movie had been announced. This was literally, we announced the anime and we announced the book, but that's not as big as a movie. It was literally about Berserker, the comic. Most of our questions were around the first 9 issues.
Right.
So we had a comic book on that stage.
That's pretty fantastic.
So I get to be like, you know how much I love comics.
No, yeah.
I get to be the first host, dude.
Especially because we talked so much about how like so much of the focus in comic book culture is now not on comic books. It's now on the things that the comic books inspire. So to like actually have a conversation about the book versus everything that the book spawned. Yeah.
So the first 40 minutes of the panel are the comic, dude.
That's awesome.
So I literally got to be the guy that did that. And then I got to have the team love it. I got to see that merch everywhere. And then people coming up to me talk about the comic, not just Keanu. And then I go to the parties at night. And this is where that networking thing comes in. Yeah. Dude, so Jim Lee comes up to me and he's like, hey man, you're Koi Jandro, right? I heard you host the first comic book panel on Hall H. And I got to be like, yes, Jim Lee, you know my professional. Like, can you
First
imagine?
Off, if you dared, you call him Jim and not Mr. Lee. First off, don't you dare. You put some respect on that.
Humble yourself.
Yes.
So Jim Lee is talking to me about this, and then so we're talking at this party. 2 a.m. Jim Lee follows me on Twitter, and I just go like, "Oh my god, god!"
Wait! I love the detail that it's 2 a.m.
because I'm literally like,
but also that means that like he's just like scrolling.
Yeah, thought of me and was like, I'm a phone. So I'm at home. Imagine
I think Jim Lee wants you.
I mean, that's I got a DM. He slid it. No,
Jim
but like,
Lee is into you.
Imagine that moment as a fan,
that's
like to my side.
No, that's bananas.
Like I literally like was on my phone, like this is fake. I took a screenshot.
There's no way that you didn't immediately start writing a DM to Jim Lee at 2:01 that you then deleted. No, never mind.
7 or 8 times.
This is like literally like you, like the hot girl asked you out in school, and you were like, you're like, no, I gotta play cool. I gotta be cool about this.
This is fine. I'll follow him back tomorrow.
So when is Jim Lee gonna come and chat with us on the show?
So, dude, that's what's crazy is I saw Jim every night the rest of the Comic-Con because we done the same party.
Yeah, all the same.
And so we'd like run into each other. So at one point, those crowded those parties get. Yeah. At one point, we're standing like this, and I'm with 2 of my friends and someone I just met who works at like Fandom or something, and I get like elbowed in the chest, like hard, knock my drink over, and it's someone just trying to get by. I'm not mad, but the person's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. It's Jim Lee again. And then Joe goes, oh, it's you, Koi, and walks away like it was fine. And then
wait a minute. Now the story took a weird turn because now he's okay with dropping your drink for some reason.
He didn't see that I had a drink. He just saw they elbowed me.
He's like, oh, okay. I don't need to apologize
because I know him.
You.
So then Jonah goes, dude, are you close enough with Jim Lee that he just like shouldered you? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's Jim. And so I got a moment of like, this is my buddy Jim Lee, and it was.
You mean James?
James, my buddy James.
Oh, everybody calls him Jim. Yeah, I know him as James.
We're close. So that
my old friend Jamie Lee,
dude. At the end of Comic-Con, we'd been like hanging out at a few parties, and my friend was with me at the party, and she's like, who's this? And I was like, this is Jim. He works at DC. Blah blah blah.
Right.
I didn't want to make him uncomfortable or like what level of work at DC.
Sure.
She's like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And then there's a few more minutes of conversation. She's like, I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name. He's like, oh, it's Jim Lee. And then like 1, 2, 3.
Right.
And like she gets so excited, she's like, I'm sorry, so sorry, can we get a picture? Blah blah blah.
Right,
but it was like after we'd had that conversation. And to see Jim get excited to be both Jim at DC and Jim Lee, and him be like the cool, humble guy he is, was so cool. Like he's the best.
That's one of my favorite things about Comic-Con is that so many of us don't know what our heroes look like.
Yes.
So I'll never forget the very first time I ever met Eastman.
Yeah, dude.
I never knew what he looked like. All I knew was his name was on all the Teenage Ninja Turtle shit.
Yep.
And I met him, a similar situation where he was with a person that I know, but I didn't know, and he was just introduced as Kevin.
Yeah.
And it was not at a booth. It was an event at Comic-Con weekend, and it wasn't until like 10 minutes after talking to this dude. And by the way, like kind of awkwardly, but like in a playfully, but in that way that like our friend who we were both there talking to got preoccupied. So it was like, oh, how do you know?
No small talk.
So,
You're trying to figure.
Yeah. So how do you know Dave? And we're doing that thing. It's like,
Oh, that's so good.
I work with him on this. I work on this. And then like 10 minutes in, it's like, oh yeah. So, and like somebody else says something to him, and then I click who he is.
That's my favorite.
They're great moments because it's like comic book writers and artists aren't faces.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, there's a certain group. I think like the only people. We talked about this once before, where I think
the McFarlanes and live.
I think the Image turned comic book writers and creators into rock stars, but that was very short lived.
And it was like 5 years. And if you're from that 5 years,
right,
you know them.
Also, if you're not like buying an Interview magazine or like Old Wizards or stuff where there was there was photos of
top
them.
10 writers, top 10 artists. That's it.
You never see those faces.
So it was so special.
That's real fun.
And it was also really cool because, Jim Lee is a hero of mine, obviously, but him hearing about the comic book element allowed me to talk about Berserker to someone that like, as at DC that would care about these things. Right. And I think honestly, like we look back at Twilight as when things changed to pop culture. I think like
we do
at Comic-Con, like Twilight was in Hall H and it changed everything.
Oh, right. Okay,
like at a Comic-Con specifically.
Sure.
But
I was like, hang on, we're putting some weight on this.
What's this Twilight thing you're saying? No, but then I think honestly, hopefully this doing so well, I'm hoping the Comic-Con schedule, we might have helped comic books be in the bigger rooms and how it did well. So it was really cool if I got to be any part of that and have people like Jim, and I got to talk to Kevin Feige about it. Like Kevin Feige knew I hosted and congratulated me.
Right.
Those titans of shaping Comic-Con, hearing it's gone well, seeing someone that's invested, seeing a comic fan get to handle that well.
Right.
Hopefully this shifts it back towards what it could be.
This is why sometimes I feel like I need to be your agent. I feel like I'm such an opportunist that you're so sweet, Koi. You go like, oh man, I hope this is great. I hope this allows us to push comic books back towards comic. And my mind goes, oh, good. I hope that this makes them know that you're the guy that they should be calling for comic book things.
I am. I hope so.
You need to be the comic book host
version of whatever these movie people are.
Exactly.
Like, do you have a comic book?
I
got you with the book.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really hard thing to do too, because I'm keeping an audience invested in something they don't all know.
And especially of that scale in that room, which
there's no movie clip.
I was gonna say is so predicated on that room is predicated on spectacle. I've done the thing where I've gone in the morning because there was one panel I wanted to see at noon, and I knew I wasn't gonna get into it unless I went at the one at 8. And so you spend all day there to see the two that you want to see. And I've sat through some of those panels, even for movies that didn't have spectacle. Like there were some, Nick Cage showed up for a movie that nobody cared about. But like Nick Cage is on stage and it was still kind of a slog. Right. Like just because Keanu is there doesn't mean it's going to be good.
I was so afraid we'd have that trickle out. You know what I mean? Like people got to see him, they had their moment, they leave. And
especially in the back of the room.
And then the lights come on and I'm like, oh, we lost everyone. Because the lights come on at the end. I was so afraid, like, please. And then everyone was still, my video I took is of the end of the panel. Yeah. And it's still full. Yeah. So it was really cool that they stayed there and like literally we had an upcoming graphic.
Hopefully you had like a really big one going on after you, because then people don't leave. They don't turn the room over and they stay.
It wasn't that big.
Okay. I'm not saying you need it.
No,
but
like that's the dream. But it was 2 away from the next big one. So people were coming and going.
Yeah.
But what was cool for me was we only had 5 slides and people weren't waiting for those. They were engaged in the conversation between the artists.
5 slides meaning 5 things to show.
That's it. And they were graphic. They're images.
Yeah, of course.
So like you're saying, it's so multimedia based. Ours were stills except for one opening trailer with Keanu's voice. Right. So we got them with the trailer and they got to know a little bit of the comic, but the rest is like, if you don't know the comic, you don't necessarily care about its release schedule.
Yeah. Well, I don't, if I don't even care that this thing exists, why do I care that it's being made into 3?
I don't care about more of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Kind of like how I feel about other DC movies.
That's why I opened this with Shazam. That's why do you think I know my market? I know who I'm talking to.
I mean, it's fantastic. And I do think that there's something to be said about Keanu has the same, speaking of Shazam, like the same sort of cred that I always pronounce it Levi, but I'm clearly wrong.
I think it's Levi.
Okay.
Yeah.
How Zachary Levi has, where, like we know that he's one of us. Like everybody knows that Keanu is one of us, even though he's clearly a much bigger star. But he loves that he can be one of us on that stage. Right. Like I loved seeing Keanu Reeves geek out because he knows that's where he can geek out. Right, like he got to be excited about these things. So it was honestly, I knew it'd be a life moment, but I'm really critical of my work where I usually go oh, I wish I could change this and this. Yeah. If I had a time machine, I wouldn't go back because it went perfect. Like I wouldn't want to fuck up the timeline. It actually was what I wanted. And it was really cool to have a life moment that's like, you had a kid that could turn out shitty. Like this turned out great. Like I look back on this as like it went well. Your Hall H baby.
My Hall H baby
Not an asshole.
Going to Yale.
Not an asshole.
Went well.
Listen, going to Yale does not mean a success
People
story.
bought the comic. It's successful.
Yeah, but let's not equate
every
Yale to
doesn't-
success.
Okay, my kid grew up to be a doctor that's helping people.
Stop perpetuating white supremacy in America.
Okay, my kid grew up to do well and help people. I'm proud of him.
There it is.
So yeah, dude, it was honestly one of the great honors of my life. And Boom Studios, I will say, they're an indie comic book company. So to see the joy of them seeing their baby is so much more important.
Where is Boom based out of?
Their internet. Like they don't have a studio. They have a studio, but they don't have like a hub.
They don't have an office here in LA somewhere?
Not to my knowledge, I asked.
Why do I feel like I've driven by and seen that logo?
I think it might have
somewhere?
like a publishing like leg. Or
I don't know why I feel like I've
Seen
somewhere in the
the
valley,
exclamation point,
somewhere in
like
the valley.
Boom.
I feel like I've driven by a building and went, "Oh, that's Boom Studios," but it could
Maybe.
be one of the 90 other comic and or animation studios that all look
you're
and
paralleling
sound
that
the
name.
same.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, it was a life honor, and we didn't even talk about Marvel. We got to get to the hotline questions, but
I mean, Marvel has movies coming out.
But that's a testament to how much I care about the comic
Oh
books.
yeah, and we don't need to talk about Marvel. Everybody's seen it
and replayed it.
We get it.
It was cool to be in the room.
They're making all sorts of all the stuff that you thought they were making. They're making.
I'm excited about it.
They're still making it.
And I'll be there.
And who thought that the Na'vi were going to be in Black Panther?
But now
2?
that they are, I'm in.
Never
James Cameron's
expected-
Black Panther, Ryan Coogler team up.
This multiverse is getting really out of
Crazy.
control.
It's Disney owns everything. Avatar, Black Panther.
Well, yeah. Do you want to do a hotline caller too? We have a couple more
let's get
minutes.
to a couple. And guys, if you have this is great. If you have questions about the Marvel stuff, call in and then we'll talk about it. Like if there's specifics, because they did an hour and they announced like 7 huge, like it was big. But 818-794-0722. If you want to hone in on that conversation, we got you.
In fairness, it is all available. I'm sure we're not breaking any Marvel news.
There's
on this program.
one clip they didn't play for the public, and
yeah?
I don't remember if it's Secret Invasion. Did you see Secret Invasion?
I didn't see.
I don't remember if it's Secret Invasion.
The only thing I did see the only 2 trailers I saw were Wakanda and She-Hulk.
Okay. There was a couple things I know that was just for us, but I haven't seen what's been released, so I don't know to compare.
Yeah, sure.
But it'll all be soon, and it was more emotional than I expected. The room itself, like Guardians, is about loss.
Yeah,
it's the last one.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp looks really fucking heavy. There's lots of levity in it, but like it's gonna land heavy.
Yeah.
There's like Wakanda Forever. That
Obviously,
cast, that cast was crying on stage throughout their whole presentation, and then at the end they all like got in a bigger cup. Everyone cried.
Yeah,
they actually had to play the trailer a second time because we were all awkwardly crying.
Yeah,
like we needed to breathe before we left.
Right.
But like I didn't expect to cry for an hour at Marvel.
Sure,
but I should have.
Yeah.
So that room was one of the most emotional rooms I've ever been in, and I did get to thank Kevin Feige about like how much he cares about the fan experience of not just the room, but like how to curate that emotion.
Right.
Because he's doing D23 in like 3 weeks.
Oh, he's doing fucking the Apple conventions that Steve Jobs used to do, except for Marvel
effectively.
now. Yeah.
And like that
get that man a black turtleneck.
He's just killing it. But that room could have been like, here's the bare minimum.
Right.
We got D23. Instead, he's like, hey, we're going to go long term, give you just enough that you want to come back for D23.
Right. For the specifics.
So curated, so genius. And like, we cried for an hour. That room was so special. And like, this was, I think, some of the best Hall H since it was what we went for it as.
Right.
Because DC knew what they're doing. They got the assignment. Marvel knew the emotion of the room. And then an actual comic book got to shine physically for 40 minutes.
That's fantastic. You're giving me major Hall H FOMO, which I wasn't expecting. Because like I said at the top of this episode, I tend to don't go for Hall H
watch it
anymore.
online.
I usually just go like, I'll see it online in 2 seconds, and then I'll just go walk the floor and have fun and meet people and see cool art. But that sounds like a fantastic lineup for the
It was
weekend.
really special.
Yeah.
And so I got to hang out with Jim Starlin, WB Games, and then Hall H. Like it was like, I feel I'll remember this weekend for the rest of my life in a way that feels like it moved my professional career forward, but it also moved me as a creator in a way that I'm not as jealous of TikTokers. I'm not as think about all the things I don't have time to make that content.
Sure.
So I've been really struggling as a creator going like, how do I do what I do and TikTok and all these other things to keep up? This showed me that there's still a market for what I love, which is talking to creators like this. And it was really fulfilling for me as someone making this stuff to know that there is a place for that. It's not all short form, and that people still give a shit at Comic-Con.
Right.
So this was
in the big room.
Yeah. So this was really special.
Yeah, I always tell people, man. I told you, you're gonna have a lot more of an emotional reward speaking to even 100 people in a room than you are 10,000 on the internet.
Yeah,
like that. It'll never equate to the same emotional feeling that of accomplishment and or just like joy. You know, like in the moment, you're never gonna have the same thing that you're going to get on your friggin' TikTok. That
Human interaction is so important because you get 1,000 likes on a post, then you look for 10,000. It's immediately gone.
Yeah. Whereas like, the room is the best.
Yeah.
There's nothing like the room.
Nothing, and that also is why the hotlines are important to me because I like meeting you guys. Ben Detrixhe came out in a Koi Cast shirt.
Nice.
Got to see Ben. Robin, we hung out. We like wandered around San Diego a little bit.
Nice.
So I got to see like some OG Koi Casters, which was really cool.
That's great.
And that was really fulfilling. I like said a little like, hey, meet here if you want to meet up, and it was Koi Cast folk.
We need I think that's got to be a goal of the show is whether or not next year or the year after even like doing a Koi Cast live at Comic-Con.
Yeah, because WonderCon was great.
WonderCon was really fun. I feel like we'll have a bigger stage at Comic-Con where we could get maybe a couple people to come and play games with us.
And like get guests that are
but make it a panel show that's not about a specific
news,
thing, but like people who we know will come and play with us.
Yeah, I'll try to get my buddy James Lee.
That could be fun. Get James. James, you can't cast X-Men.
James, I know you draw them very well. We've been told no more X-Men.
No more X-Men, James.
What's up, Koi Cast? It's Jacob Wood. I just heard my freaking name in a song by one of these beautiful viewers, and I just wanted to say that there's nothing but love and support in this community, in the Discord, and I just needed to say a little shout out to all of us in the Koi Pond. We're just out here, man. We're just out here, and we're just showing love and support, and there's been no hatred. And I just wanted to say that producer Jake and Koi doing a great job. Keep striving. You're going to get very big one day. Very, very big. Last but not least, Gilbert cheated for his title bag. That's all I got to say. All right, bye.
I love this because it is the positivity I was just saying. Like this audience is exactly that. And yes, the use of name and song, that whole song was such
shout out to Duger, who we played his Pearl Jam cover at the end of last week's
episode. The man
episode.
went for it the whole time.
We'll pull the curtain back a little bit. It was he did the whole song, so we couldn't put it in the middle of an episode because it's hard to cultivate the conversation.
How do you come back from that?
Yeah. So we put it at the end because we didn't want to. We felt like if we would have cut any of it out,
disrespectful.
It would have been disrespectful. So
we played it in its entirety, and we were listening to it in real time with you guys, enjoying it. We'd listened to it before. That was our second time, like still giddy. Like it's so good.
And then at the end he sneaks one in there that Gilbert stole the unpunchable title from him.
Yep.
Hey, current unpunchable gift horse of the month for the month of July, SDCC month. I'm not saying that's worth a little bit more, but I'm just saying Gilbert Short, he will defend that next week. We're going to be drawing our unpunchable gift horse for August.
Yeah, very important.
Next week.
I also got to say that everyone that sent pictures of themselves in Koi Cast shirts that wanted to be at Comic-Con, that was pretty special.
Yes.
Like I felt like the Comic-Con
I didn't see any of those. Where did they go?
Yeah, they're on Twitter.
Tag all the people.
There's a few folks that were like at home with at Comic-Con wearing their shirts. Like they were
got it.
Yeah.
I thought you meant people who were at Comic-Con and took pictures and then tagged themselves.
That was Ben Detrixhe. But that's only Ben. Ben's the exclusive Koi Caster in the wild.
That you saw.
That I saw physically.
Right, sure.
I think I saw a second unpunchable shirt horse, but I couldn't get to them. And you better believe I tried.
Next year, we're going to have a contest.
Oh?
Next year, let's do a contest for yourself in Koi Cast merch at Comic-Con. We'll do a giveaway.
Great.
You have to take a photo of yourself at specific vendors.
Love that.
It'll be like a
boom booth.
It'll be like bingo.
Like an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah. Like bingo, where like you have to take a picture at these, and if you get that bingo, then
that's great. You get merch.
We'll figure it out.
Love that. Or you're into the raffle for merch. Because we'll give away a shirt or something. Like an exclusive San Diego shirt.
A one of a kind item.
Yeah.
All right. See,
if only we had this exact epiphany about a month and a half ago.
Yep, exactly.
Here we are, guys. 2023 Comic-Con. We're gonna have a panel and merch.
Hey Koi, hey producer Jake. This is Gilbert up in the Bay Area, aka at least as of this recording, the unpunchable gift horse of the month.
Speak of the devil.
There he is.
I had a question about overlooked things at Comic-Con that maybe deserved a little more attention. Everybody saw the Marvel and DC trailers. Well, most of us, I still haven't watched any of them. But Koi, specifically, did you see anything that you wanted to get more attention that maybe didn't? Something in the world of comics or what have you? And something that maybe shouldn't exist. Like I shared something in the Discord that was terrible. Jake saw it. He can explain it to you if you'd like. But other than that, I just hope you have a good week. And I also wanted to pester you both about P.O. boxes or anything for mailing stuff to you. I spoke to Jake about it on Discord, but if you have something, Coy, I just thought I'd ask because I have something I want to send you. That's all. You guys have a good week. Bye.
That is very sweet. As far as P.O. boxes, mine is actually fairly far, so I only get to it like once a month. But I think Jake.
Who cares? Shut your dumb mouth,
I was gonna
Coy.
say Jake. I get it from Jake. I was gonna say I see you more often.
Shut your dumb mouth,
Okay.
because I just got back yesterday from setting up P.O. Box 481310, 7610 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California 90048. That is the brand new Dragon Wagon Radio P.O. Box. That is, once again, P.O. Box 481310, 7610 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California 90048. That is where you can now mail anything you would like to mail to the Dragon's Den. Needed to set up the P.O. Box because the new Dragon's Den, not so great with getting packages.
Oh.
Yeah. A little bit tough to get stuff shipped here because of security systems and shit that gets stolen all the time.
No shit.
It's because it's a larger, like the old Dragon's Den, you could just mail it right to our mailbox in the door. The new Dragon's Den, it has to go through a couple channels and it's problematic. So there you go.
P.O. Box, and I'm here every 2 weeks, so feel free to send that there. He mentioned something for me. I'll be here closer and sooner than anywhere else.
Yeah, but still put
care of Coy or something.
Exactly. You can send it to Dragon Wag Radio or Jake Lloyd Bacon or whatever you need, and I'll get it. We'll know how it
call
works.
it Coycast or whatever you need to label it.
He was talking about
underdogs at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I was just saying, like, this is the first time I feel like comics have been in love. Like, I feel like the Marvel announcements for comics also got some love. I also saw more comic creators there. Artist Alley was stacked, and that was cool. As ever, I think Artist Alley is the underdog. I don't think it was, it was really stacked for how busy it was every day, but it could have been busier because I do think, the studios are starting to see that comic books are important. There was Paper Girls comics as well as the Paper Girls premiere, which was special. Us having the Berserker thing, I thought an underdog at first, and then it was full, and I was like, wait a second. So I don't know if we can count something that did well as an underdog, but initially I was afraid it would be, and then we did well. I think that Brian K.'s Paper Girls is going to surprise a lot of people. It's going to do very well. I think that's a bit of an underdog. I wanted to hear more about that premiere. I wanted that to get a little bit more buzz than I feel like it might have. Oddly, the HBO and Amazon stuff, it was on buses and things, but I didn't feel the impact of HBO like I usually do. Westworld didn't really have a presence, and that's in a new season that I hear people are loving, but a lot of people fell off after season 2. So I feel like season 4 is like fighting to get them back. So I would have liked to have heard more about Westworld in that environment, as well as I feel like House of the Dragon isn't getting the love it deserves. Matt Smith is a goddamn genius, and I didn't watch the first Game of Thrones stuff. Like, I'm not a lot into the medieval violence thing doesn't work for me all the time, and I struggle with some of the subject matter of that show. It's just not my thing. I love that people love it. I'm not disparaging the show. It's just not for me. I've been more interested in House of the Dragon than I was in Game of Thrones, and I didn't get that vibe from, the Comic-Con experience. So I'd say House of the Dragon, and Paper Girls. Those are my two underdogs. And I thought Berserker might have been like, as the first of something in Hall H, that's concerning.
And the reality is it's the ultimate answer to this question is probably your panel with Berserker, because it got a lot of attention at con.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that people who weren't at con aren't now hearing about this panel the same way they're hearing about the Marvel
DC.
with a billion people who are interested. You know what I mean? Who are already aware and waiting and expecting it.
Sure.
So I think Berserker is probably the top of the list.
Yeah.
Of things that were celebrated that people aren't going to hear as much about if they're not listeners of this podcast or followers of the participants of that room.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And then that'd be nice to get some awareness of it. And hopefully it does. Hopefully it being the first actually allows it to be bigger because of people like the idea of the novelty of it.
What about things that you saw that you went, ooh, this shouldn't exist? Because he did specify that. And I know what he's talking about. So he posted something in the Discord, but I want to get your answer before I talk about his thing.
Things that shouldn't
if you
exist.
Have one. If you saw something you're like, oh boy, why is that?
I worked a lot. I only walked the floor on Sunday, and I only could do half.
Right.
So I did Artist Alley one day, and then the other day I tried to do the whole floor, and then I ran out of time. But while I walked the floor, a friend of mine was working a booth, and I got to meet one of my heroes that I'd never met somehow. John Romita Jr. was
that's
the last.
fun.
That's cool, right? That was the last thing I did on the floor was meet one of my heroes.
Jim Lee and John Romita Jr., Juder? What is that name? I think that you're just cultivating what I would like to consider the future Koicast guest list.
I would like that very much because me and Johnny Meter Jr. Literally I don't know if you know this story, but I was at WonderCon like 5 or 6 years ago now, and the cast of The Office was there.
Okay.
And usually I am better equipped to talk to actors and things at those panels because they don't know how to talk to comic folk.
Was that the Glickman panel?
I think so.
Steven
yes,
Glickman,
yeah, exactly.
I was there for that.
So I was green room with them. And the Office people don't know a lot of the comic people. So I'm a good gateway drug.
Sure.
Because I know both sides. So I was sitting with the Office people having a great conversation. Johnny Meter Jr. comes into the green room and he comes to sit down, and I literally excuse myself. I leave. I run away because I'm intimidated by him because he's got a rock star swag and he's my Spider-Man artist. He's the guy. Yeah. So so many people were confused later when I said why I left. I was like, I can handle the actors in The Office. Johnny Meter Jr. is here, and that is a god.
I just want to ask listeners to please isolate what he just said about Romita being his Spider-Man artist. Isolate that. Please send that to Todd McFarlane
directly. Please
send it out and just say, "Hey, Todd McFarlane, Coy said that he learned to read with your Spider-Man, but he doesn't like the way you draw him."
Oh, there it is, guys. Actually, I told John that he was on my Rushmore and said that Todd was another one, and it was a really funny Spider-Man style art. It was a good little.
He's like, "Oh yeah, Todd."
So it was actually
that guy.
That already happened. Yeah. It was that was the last thing I did at the con, which felt really special because it made my entire con comic pace. Sure. I landed, talked with Jim. Yeah. I left with Romita Jr., who I'd always wanted to meet, and we had a really good talk. And he follows me on Instagram now.
Where was Romita?
He was signing at the not an artist alley, but one of the main doors, and they had his own little booth thing that they were cycling through.
Just for him.
For him.
Oh, Romita booth.
Yeah,
okay, got it.
And he was doing sketches, which was so cool to see him sketch Spider-Man in real life. I got to see a Spider-Man appear.
I haven't paid for a lot of commissions at cons. There aren't a lot of people, mostly because of time. Mostly because a lot of times it's I'm not going to come back to the spot once I've been here. That's kind of how I do cons. It's very much so I have not done that a lot throughout the years. There are a few people who I
would pay for immediately.
I have paid for, and there are a few people who I have just sat behind them.
Yeah.
And just watched them draw. And I've just sort of lingered and I'm like, am I bothering you? And no, it's cool. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I'm going to watch you do the next 4 commissions because this is probably better than just
any panel I'm in.
Or than walking by and seeing art that's already made hanging on a wire thing. I'd rather watch you actively do this.
This is creation.
Yeah,
I'm seeing creation.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's seeing not only meeting Romita, but seeing him sketch as Spider-Man. Right. And so John Romita Jr. and Ron Garney followed me on Instagram, and Jim Lee followed me on Twitter. So I can't quantify how giddy 10-year-old Coy is inside me right now, but 33-year-old Coy is fucking stoked. That was my last moment of Comic-Con. I'm so stoked. And they do all follow me, so I do want to try to get them on the show because that'd be rad. So the underdogs of the con are BRZRKR as the thing that grew and blew up, Johnny Meter Jr. signing, and Paper Girls. Right. And House of the Dragon. Those are my ones.
Right on. Well, anyways, that's probably, I'm not going to elaborate on what Gil posted because that's now a bummer compared to that fun story. So we'll end it up. Join the Discord, koicast.com.
It's free.
Click the Discord link. It's completely free. It's a great community, and you can see the weird political comics that Gil posted.
Oh, God.
That are very, very weird and don't seem satirical, which would be the only thing that makes them good.
Yep, didn't see that myself.
But in any case, this gave me massive FOMO. I was content. By the way, before we started talking, Chloe was like, "Oh, save the story about what happened with you in Comic-Con and your weekend for the show." Did not get a chance to tell you that story. So we'll save that. But all you got to know is, did not go. I was not at Comic-Con this weekend, and I was at peace with it
until I came in and just ruined it.
I'm no longer at peace with it.
So I came in and messed up Jake's day.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
So there you have it.
And we're going to end on that note because that feels... I tried to start the show positive, accidentally ending it negative. Let's rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Those things mean the world to me. I appreciate each and every one of those. Thank you guys.
They mean the world to us.
They mean the world to us because they truly help this show exist. They really boost this whole awareness. And Jake and I love reading what you guys have to say. Thank you. Koicast.com for merch. We got shirts, we got mugs, we got masks. You can also join the Patreon. And to be honest, that Patreon response has been incredible. We didn't know how it would go because we started it so deep into the show. We transitioned it from the Koijandro Patreon to the much more fair, Jake is here with me. So we made a Koicast Patreon that has over 107 episodes of us discussing art. So please, please, please check out that Patreon. There's also tiers, including the Unpunchable Gift Horse tier. please check out that Patreon. It is hours that we spend filming here, and we do hours of work in prep and post. So it really does mean a lot that you guys support, and it helps us out. So thank you.
110. This week will be the 110th episode of the POP.
That is so dope. So
Also,
and all those are available and well organized.
Also, I just want to really quickly, because you mentioned reviews, I want to read a really quick review that we just got on Wednesday. Ironically, we got this on Wednesday, and the subject of the review is Wednesdays.
Nice.
5 stars. Every Wednesday, this podcast makes my week. Thanks. Invisitrip. That's from Invisitrip. Very kind
Thanks,
of
man.
you.
I love that you're Wednesday.
You don't assume it's a man. We don't know
Did I
that.
say it?
You said thanks, man.
Oh, I use man very
The way that I
generously.
use dude. I use dude to be gender neutral, but yeah.
I call ladies man in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, that's fair.
Apologies to anyone that is offended by man. It is meant neutrally.
5 stars on Apple Podcast.
Appreciate that. And I love that we're part of your Wednesday. Follow us on social media. I'm at Coy Jondro. He's at Jake Lloyd Bagan. You can use hashtag CoyCast to get our attention. Very much appreciated. And for your hotline calls, check out 818-794-0722. That's 818-794-0722. Or you can send a voice memo to contact@coycast.com. So much love to all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you, as always, to Comic Books, which now have a place in Hall H, for existing.
Hello, workers of the world. My name is James Mastriani.
And my name is Matt Newell.
And we are writers and performers and comedians and also hosts of the show Good Work, a laid-back conversational roundtable presented by the century-old newspaper, The Chief.
Yeah, we're going to be discussing labor politics, what it means to be a worker in America, and more. Everything with a pro-worker slant.
Join us and producer Jake on Good Work on Dragon Wagon Radio.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you get them.
Wherever you can get them.
It's Dragon Wagon.